I am ready. Can we go ahead now?
Yep.
All right. Good evening, and thank you for viewing this July 1st meeting of the Arcata City Council. As you know, the City Council meeting is being held as a teleconference in response to local efforts to reduce the spread of the COVID-19 virus. We want to thank the community for their efforts to slow the spread of COVID-19 in Arcata. We are all seeing the increase in cases throughout the state and the nation. We want Arcata to show the world that by supporting masking and social distancing, we can keep our curve flat, our community healthy, and businesses open. Please support safe shopping by masking up in Arcata. All votes will be taken through a roll call vote this evening. Public comment was accepted via email and in writing for both specific agenda items and general comments. Comments on specific agenda items will be read by staff during that agenda item. You can email comments to pc@cityofarcata.org now if you want them to be read and recorded as part of the meeting. If you choose, please rise and join me for a flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The city clerk will provide the roll call tonight. Please go ahead.
Mayor Winkler.
Here.
Vice Mayor Patino.
Here.
Councilmember Pereira.
Here.
Councilmember Watson.
Here.
All present.
Right, we have one ceremonial matter tonight recognizing Dr. Teresa Frankovich and local healthcare workers, which I will read. I will read the letter that we're sending to Dr. Frankovich and also the proclamation. Dear Dr. Frankovich, the Arcata City Council would like to thank you for your leadership as we continue to navigate through the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. You've shown a steadfast commitment to protecting our community members' lives and health, and your deep respect and knowledge of science has served us all through these challenging times. We especially want to acknowledge your commitment to being accessible and prioritizing open communication. Your continuing efforts are helping to keep our residents informed with the latest local news. Your openness to discuss why decisions are being made while providing clear information on what next steps might look like has not gone unnoticed. The comfort of that information brings us to all is immeasurable. The City of Arcata would also like to acknowledge and thank the healthcare professionals, emergency support staff, and first responders in our region. The selfless work that they do to care for patients, knowing the risk of potentially contracting the virus or passing it to loved ones, is admirable. We understand that many have made the decision to self-isolate away from their families for extended periods of time, and we are very grateful for those sacrifices and for their commitment to public health in Humboldt County. With our sincere appreciation, this letter is signed by myself. I also will read the certificate of recognition presented to Dr. Teresa Frankovich, Humboldt County Health Officer. Your ongoing dedication and courage deserve our deepest gratitude and admiration. Your steadfast service and commitment to public health in Humboldt County is saving many lives and protecting us all. The City of Arcata recognizes and thanks Dr. Frankovich for her outstanding efforts in keeping our community informed and safe during the COVID-19 pandemic, dated today, July 20th or July 1st, 2020, signed by myself as mayor. Next is a report by commission and committees. Today is the annual report from the Energy Committee. Is a representative from the Energy Committee here to give this report?
Yes, we have George Williamson, the chair of the Energy Committee. So he can go ahead and unmute yourself, George, and proceed.
Yes, thank you, members of the council. George Williamson, Energy Committee Chair, and here to give you an annual report of committee activities. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, thanks. Sheltering in place, staying safe and social distance and all that. Like all committees, commissions, we've been impacted by the COVID pandemic, but have hopes that we will be able to meet, like your meeting, video conference here in the near future. Last year, we had some notable milestones I want to share with you. One was Arcata hosted the Energy Committee and the city through providing the community center, hosted one of the climate action plan meetings. These are the ones that the city is doing in conjunction with the county. And it was a very well attended meeting. We very interactive. We had stations set up around the senior center there, and people could come around and look at the displays, comment on climate action plan proposals. And so that was, we got some really good information, and we're continuing to work with the county on that climate action plan. We also had a couple of student interns who from HSU who participated, worked with us, and were very instrumental in assisting with the with that plan. So that was good. The other items that we're engaged with is the all-electric initiative, which this council has promoted, working to reduce energy consumption and improve energy efficiency at city facilities. Virtually every meeting we have, when we are able to meet, we have RCEA representatives, and that's a good way to interact and share what we're doing with what that regional JPA is doing. So we appreciate that. And so looking forward to the coming year, continuing to work on REACH codes, continuing to work on the greenhouse gas reduction plan, and coordinating with the county on the climate action plan. We also want to continue our work with the Transportation Safety Committee on mode shift. We think there's some real energy efficient, energy savings opportunities there, along with transportation safety. So we feel our interests are very much aligned with transportation safety, continuing to help with the all-electric initiative, and then just community resiliency. And this pandemic is one of those things that it's going to test our resiliency, but I think we're coming out of it with a stronger community. So that's my report. I want to really convey to the council the appreciation that this committee has with for the staffing that you provided us. You provide a meeting place, agendas, staff is there at every meeting, and that really helps us function. We also are at full strength. We've had a couple of committee members leave, but we have some new committee members that have come on. Scott Cost and a staff person from HSU. So a lot of interest in our committee, and we attribute that to the support we get from the city of Arcata. So thank you. That's my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So questions from members of the council?
Paul?
Yeah, my question is, George, have you guys had any conversation with PG&E about our hopeful islanding of power? You know, having the power plant and us be separate of the rest of the grid?
No, we haven't. that has been a pretty recent, that's been something that's
Right.
been, and we're encouraged by what's happening with the local power plant. We hope that that avoids any planned safety power shutdowns, but we haven't had that interaction, no.
Great. Thanks, George.
I can give you some feedback on that, Paul, that at the last RCA board meeting, Matthew Marshall gave a presentation and showed a specific map provided by PG&E showing the areas of the county that would be protected by a public safety power shutdown, and that included all of Arcata. And so that has been tested, and that's the plan now. And the exception would be if there were a fire danger in the county, then the PG&E might need to shut down areas of the county for that reason. But if the danger is outside the county, then PG&E would be able to operate all of Arcata from the Humboldt Bay generating station.
Michael, can we get a copy of that map to the council members so we're kind of up to date with that?
All right, I will ask RCA staff to provide map to the council members.
Thanks, Michael.
Because last year, some of the council members expressed some reservations about the all electric initiative because of the power shutdowns in it. And I think that we're going to have some experience this summer with the effectiveness of that. And I think that assuming that works as advertised by PG&E, then I think that could give members of the council more assurance that if we were all electric, that it would not provide extra disruption for that reason. Let's see, George, has the committee looked into what is being done in other jurisdictions such as Berkeley as far as electrification ordinances?
Yes, your staff has been most helpful in researching those, and even though we're not meeting periodically, as your staff finds other examples of what municipalities are doing, they're forwarding that to us for our information and review. And when we do get to meet, hopefully later this summer through video conference, we hope to be able to discuss them.
Right. I think they could be helpful since Mihaela Slaccarelli is our RCA staff to get extra feedback on that as far as what's going on. That among other things, that RCA board has allocated money for customer rebates for electric heat pumps. That hasn't been formalized yet, but that should be available in the next few months, and that could help with electrification both of businesses and residences in Arcata.
Thank you. We'll look for that.
Mm-hmm. Right, and let's see, the city in the proposed city budget, the city is temporarily suspending, my understanding, suspending work on replacing the natural gas furnaces with heat pumps. Is that? Could you explain that, Karen?
Sure. We have just finished, phase one of the conversion of City Hall over to the in essence, heat pump system. And we've done, so what's on now is what's now community development offices. And we sized that equipment to also house recreation in the council chambers. So that will be the next phase. All of those capital projects that are funded through the general fund right now are frozen, but they are still teed up, for the first year that we've got funding that we can put back to those projects.
And the same situation for the library also?
Yes, yeah, we did have additional energy projects associated with the library this year that the funding for those was also frozen. We do have a couple of heat pumps. I don't, Mark, are you on the call yet, or Julie?
I'm there.
Okay, that
there
could
are-
speak to some past project at the library that is finishing installation.
We completed, there's 3 heat pumps installed at the library, mini split electric heat pumps now. The conference room and 2 in the back area where staff in the library work, but we froze the funding for the complete conversion. There's still the larger gas furnace in there. So, but we took 2 out of 3 steps towards completing that.
Where do we stand as far as LED street lighting?
We've converted all of our street lighting to LED other than some of our decorative downtown lights. Everything else is LED. We did that a number of years ago with an on-bill financing support from PG&E, and we're in the process of continuing to pay off the cost of that. It was a 0% loan, and I believe we have a couple more years on that, and then we should see a nice reduction in some of our street lighting costs.
What is the plan now as far as either delaying or scheduling meetings of the Energy Committee?
The subcommittee for the REACH code / electrification actually is meeting this month, and we're working with both Misty Bruselli, who's been working on REACH codes, as well as the decarbonization group, to look at some options in preparation for a meeting with the full committee in August. We just wanted to make sure we had something to be able to report. And we're also working on the climate action plan with the county, though that slowed quite a bit through the COVID situation, and their staff were kind of diverted on other things, but I think we're back working with them on that as well. And we have a subcommittee for that one as well.
Okay, thank you, Julie. Thank you, George.
Okay, I'm leaving now. Thank you.
Right. Next is early oral communications. This 15-minute time period is provided for people to address the council on matters not on the agenda. At the conclusion of all oral communications, the council may respond to statements. Any requests that require council action will be set by the council for a future agenda or referred to staff. Do we have any early oral communication that has been submitted tonight?
Yes, there were 3 public comments submitted under this agenda item. The first one is from Uri Driscoll. Good evening, council members. I would like to make comments regarding the ongoing situation at the illegally constructed trail access occurring at the 1700 block of Fickle Hill Road. As many of you are aware, the city of Arcata constructed a trail access without providing an approved design nor obtaining a required trail encroachment permit from the county. This access remains in heavy use, even though its use has been made known to the city manager numerous times by members of the public and county public works. She has provided no official response despite a promise to do so. Signage along the trail indicate the trail is closed at the road and trail users must turn around at that point. There is also new city installed signage that cautions trail users of cross traffic ahead about 200 feet from the road. In other words, the 2 different signs indicate 2 different messages. One indicates the trail onto the county road is closed, the other that it is open. From my residence, I can see the significant increase in pedestrian traffic onto the narrow, dangerous road. The city has constructed an unapproved nuisance with no safety measures in place. It is fair to say it is only a matter of time one or more of these trail users are hurt or killed. It should be mentioned that we regularly see families with young children on Fickle Hill Road. Some are in baby strollers, others on wobbly bikes. All are there to use the unapproved Upper North Trail access. Considering the initial environmental document for the south side Fickle Hill access has yet to be completed, I would like to recommend the city develop a north side only access proposal. Trail traffic from the north side would not be obligated to cross the road to the south anyway. Should a south side access and crossing end up being feasible, a permit modification can then be proposed. Meanwhile, if I and County Public Works are mistaken and the city can provide proof to the public and to the County Public Works that the current north side constructed access has indeed been authorized, it is recommended they should immediately install a sufficient barricade to prevent unauthorized use. Once an approved plan and permit is obtained, it can then be officially opened. This will help prevent what could be a tragic accident and help shield the city and the county from associated liabilities. The next one is from Colin Fisk. Council members, I recently sent you the results of a survey conducted by CRTP about how Humboldt County residents are getting around during the pandemic and what changes they want to see in the streets as a result. 201 people responded to the survey, including 62 Arcata residents. You already have the results, so I won't go over them again in detail, but the highlights are: people are walking and biking more and driving less. Many people identified spots on the street and in other public areas where they have trouble social distancing. People overwhelmingly support allowing restaurants to put outdoor dining and parking areas, programming traffic signals for automatic walk signs, and implementing a local slow streets program. The city has reduced barriers to outdoor dining, and there are several Arcata restaurants now with tables and parking areas, which is wonderful. However, the city's recently released guidelines for encroachment in outdoor dining are problematic, and that they allow tables to be placed on sidewalks and leave only 48 inches for pedestrians to pass. This means that pedestrians using the sidewalk would have to pass within a few feet of eating unmasked diners on one or both sides, which violates public health guidelines. The survey results demonstrate that there is a need and a desire for the city to do more to improve the safety and comfort of streets during the pandemic. We specifically ask that you direct staff as follows. 1, review the specific locations identified as posing social distancing problems by Arcata residents who responded to the survey and figure out ways to address the problems. These could include temporary sidewalk or bike lane extensions or slow streets. Areas identified where such treatments are not applicable, such as on local trails, are an indication that existing recreational facilities are not sufficient during this era, and local residential streets must be made more comfortable for walking, biking, and playing to encourage more dispersed recreation. 2, review the specific locations proposed for slow streets treatment by Arcata residents and come back to the council with a proposal for a slow streets program. 3, allow encroachments for outdoor dining into parking areas, but not onto sidewalks. Arcata sidewalks just aren't wide enough for that. 4, work with Caltrans to reprogram traffic signals on Samoa Boulevard to generate automatic walk signals. I urge you to take action on these items as quickly as possible. People who get around Arcata without a car, either by choice or by necessity, need you to take this seriously. I also believe that the lack of opportunity for high-quality dispersed recreation in neighborhoods is encouraging some of the violations of public health guidelines we have seen recently with concentrated recreation such as team sports. The Community Development Block Grant Coronavirus Response Grant Program, which you'll be discussing later, proposes an opportunity to fund some of these measures. Thank you. And the third one is from Kelsey Reedy. My name is Kelsey Reedy, resident of Arcata. Want to acknowledge that we are on stolen Wheat land. There are several topics on today's agenda regarding funding. Imagine how much easier the conversation and decision-making processes would be if we reallocated APD funding to things like our water and sewer issue. Getting rid of the small number of military rifles that APD has is nowhere near enough. The country is moving towards abolition, not reform. Let's have a public hearing regarding this, especially since we have not yet heard any word or having a public hearing regarding the many concerns raised during APD from the Police Foundation report. That concludes the public comment for early oral communications.
Any comments from council on the public comment?
Paul?
My question is for Mark on the Pickle Hill trail crossing. Do you have any update on that?
Yeah, our engineering division has developed the detail for the crossing to provide to the county Public Works Department for that encroachment permit. The CEQA analysis for the south side segment, about 1,600 linear feet of trail, is in, as city manager mentioned, it's nearing the end of that, and almost ready for circulation and bringing to the city council, but it's in draft form.
And I guess if I could just maybe add that this matter, portions of this connection are under active litigation.
Oh, okay.
From the commenter this evening, and so that in part is what's restricting our ability to respond to additional questions. But we would be happy to schedule a time to update the council on that litigation matter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say I had an opportunity to check out the site yesterday, and from what I've seen, I think it looks like a great project, and I just really appreciate all the work our staff has put into it, and I'm looking forward to watch things as they develop. Thank you.
I think some of the comments that Colin Fisk made are reasonable in order to have safe accommodation of outdoor dining and pedestrians. Karen or Mark, do you have some reactions to Colin's comments?
I can say we did reach out to Caltrans immediately on the Samoa Boulevard. I don't know for sure. Nature's on the call, might be able to speak if he received confirmation. They were going to change those to an automatic switch. It will create wait times while those automatic switches are on, but Nature looks like you've unmuted. So do you have an update?
We haven't heard back from Caltrans on that. And then you are correct. They are looking at that. The only issue was if they put it to automatic, then vehicle has to wait more than anticipated. So it'll be a cycle where the vehicle will be waiting even if there's no pedestrian. So they are trying to come up with a solution where there will be a sensor for a pedestrian when he or she walks on the sidewalks, and that will help to trigger a signal, which will help optimize the signal at the intersection.
And then Nature, do you maybe want to comment? I don't think that we've actually had any requests for sidewalk seating that meet the concern criteria that was brought up by the commenter, but sort of the individual review of those applications, if and when. So far, every application that's come in is proposing private property parking lots that they have or have access to, but Nature might have a more current update today.
Yes, on the comments made by Colin, I would say we do have to provide at least access on the sidewalk for a wheelchair. So that's the reason for 48-inch. But once we get an application for outdoor dining for a sidewalk or in front of a business in the parking area, we will evaluate and see what area makes sense and to have an appropriate distance from the table and then from the sidewalk. So which is more than 6 feet, at least for current situation. So we will handle that in case by case situation as it comes in. So to date, we have not received any application for the sidewalk dining, and we want to maybe do more outreach for that. So people are encouraged to submit some application, because currently the fee for encroachment permit for outdoor dining is zero until December 31st, 2020.
I just want to comment on that. I appreciate Mr. Fisk's interest in making things better in the city. I just want to make sure that we continue to make decisions that are data driven, and and I think that when data is presented to us, it's also reasonable to look into those data collection methods and make sure that they're kind of up to our standards. But I'm grateful for him willing to take the time to make comment. Thank you.
Any further comments? Right, next is the consent calendar. All matters on the consent calendar are considered to be routine by the City Council and are enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of any of these items. If discussion is required, that item is removed from consent calendar and considered separately. At the end of the reading of the consent calendar, council members or members of the public can request that an item be removed for separate discussion. A, approve the minutes of the city council meeting of June 17th, 2020. B, biweekly report on general warrants. C, declare a continuation of the local emergency related to the coronavirus pandemic. D, direct the city manager to sign the fiscal year 2020-2021 Humboldt State University Ridership Agreement. E, approve a dollar-ride funding agreement for the city of Arcata for fiscal year 2020-2021 in the amount of $79,281 and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents. F, adopt resolution number 201-03, accepting real property parent fee from the Swainer Family Limited Partnership, 114 acres, as an addition to the Arcata Community Forest, and authorize the city manager to execute any documents necessary to complete the transfer of property. G, award a contract to Four Leaf Incorporated in the amount of $45,000 to assist with plan check / review for the fiscal year 2020-2021. Authorize a 10% contingency at $4,500 for a total potential cost of $49,500 for additional plan review if warranted, and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents. Is there any council member who would like to remove an item?
Yeah, I'd like to remove an item. The minutes, looking at the council member reports. I'm just looking at the report from HWMA. I would like to update it to, just show that there was a rate increase implemented. I think that's relevant, and it was, essentially an action taken by a vote.
Right. Is there any member of the public who submitted a request to remove an item, or a member of staff that wanted to remove an item?
There were no public comments submitted under the consent calendar.
May I have a motion on the consent calendar?
I move to approve the consent calendar as revised.
Minus
Okay,
item
second.
We have
Yeah.
a motion and a second. Let's see. So I will poll the council members. Council Member Watson.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Patino.
Aye.
Council Member Pereira.
Aye.
And I vote aye. So I would entertain a motion on item A.
I move to approve item A.
Second.
Was there any public comment on item A?
There was no public comment on item A.
Right, I will poll the council on item A. Vice Mayor Patino.
Aye.
Council Member Watson.
Aye.
Council Member Pereira.
Aye.
And I vote yes. All right, next is old business. Receive report on the status of the city's water and wastewater utility infrastructure, including planned capital improvements and proposed rate adjustments. And we will conduct a public hearing to receive public comments regarding the proposed utility rate increase. And we'll direct staff to appropriate fee increases in the fiscal years 2020 to 2025, and resolutions which establish various citywide fees, service charges, and taxes. Could I have a staff report, please, from Director Andre?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. For this item, I want to add that Finance Director Andrea Starbeski is on the meeting, as is Director Class, and from Bartle Wells and Associates, Abigail Seaman, and Doug Dove, who assisted the city with a rate study for both water and wastewater, and conducted a thorough look at our financial picture, our cash flow, our projected 5-year budget for operation, maintenance, and capital expenses. So the recommendation is to everything on this agenda, item 1 through 3, are clearly under the public hearing, the Proposition 218 public hearing item to consider rates and receive for water and wastewater, and to receive public input tonight. I wanted to start out by saying that we mailed to all utility customers and property owners the rate notice for tonight. We conducted 2 public workshops along the way within the 45-day period since we sent this rate notice out. As of tonight, within the last hour, I believe, I just wanted to disclose that we received 30 valid protest letters, and well, a total of 33. Three letters did not disclose the address of the property or of the account address, so those aren't deemed as valid protest letters. But the threshold is 50% plus 1, and considering we have about 6,000 water customers, slightly less on the wastewater side, that's less than that threshold. But I also wanted to note that 2 of the letters came from outside the city limits in the Jacoby Creek Water District, and they pertain to the water only aspect, because we don't serve that area with sewer. It's water only. So at the end of the action, I want to make sure that that's captured in your final action as you close the public hearing. A little bit on the background. The council has had a couple of sessions to review rate structure options and to determine effective rates to take effect in 2020. The city council did direct staff on May 6th to set the date for the hearing, July 1st. Previous to that, the city council directed staff that the rate notice should disclose that the rate adjustments for water would not take effect until September 1st, 2020, and for wastewater that they would not take effect until January 1st, 2021. And this was due to the council's concerns about the COVID-19 situation and just trying to defer those a bit in terms of their implementation. So the notices were mailed to all the affected property owners under the California Constitution under Proposition 218. This is a property-related fee, so we had to make sure we provide ample notice so that public comment could be taken and a protest could be registered for them. I thought the workshops, of course, it's not optimal to have a rate hearing on a Zoom type meeting, and it's not optimal to have a workshop to discuss long range, utility needs and costs in a webinar format. But we did our best with that. We developed a Q&A based on those 2 workshops and placed pertinent documents into the city's website under the wastewater page. That also included the facilities plan for the treatment plant, the pre-design report for the treatment plant, the Bartle wells background documents, their water study, their wastewater study, and the more recent final reports for the water cost of service and the wastewater cost of service, which are attached. One came in to you as a blue folder. That was the final water report. So we did our best to disclose all the pertinent information. The upshot on the water utility is it's in a healthy financial condition. It has decent reserves. The primary drivers for the rate, and I say rate changes, most will see an increase, some will see a decrease, and it's basically due to aligning to a single volumetric rate aligned with the cost of service and Prop 218 requirements. It equalizes the volume charges for all customer classes and all water use. That's why it'll go up for some customers and down for others as the rates are recalibrated. So it's not easy to say everybody's going to get a 10%, 8% increase, but we can equate that to the average user in terms for water. Currently, the average user pays for water use $28.07, and under the proposed rates, it goes up to, the first year is the big jump, $38.47. After that, it's fairly flat for the next few years. I can switch over to the rates themselves in a moment, because finance director is going to explain on the wastewater side how what we published and noticed for wastewater rates, what we have for you tonight to approve is slightly less than on that side, and that's to line up more accurately with the proposed 10% first year, 10% second year, 10% third year, 8% over the 5-year span. So I'll turn to Andre in a minute about that. On the wastewater side, the primary driver is capital projects, and although we have a healthy reserve, and our last wastewater rate increase has done quite a bit to contribute towards our reserve to be used for the treatment plant, primarily capital improvement. There's a need for additional funding to qualify for what is expected to be in the range of $55 to $64,000 or $1 million in the end. That upgrade project, and it's an upgrade project, as you know, we've been through numerous workshops and public meetings. The council selected a preferred alternative that gets the most out of the wetlands for as long as we can. Provides for upgrading old infrastructure or replacing old infrastructure that's past its design life, and which is important, and converts from chlorine to ultraviolet light as our disinfection method, which has superior environmental benefits for the aquatic habitat, and in terms of community hazard, it removes a significant community hazard in the event of a disaster such as a large earthquake, and it lowers the employee exposure to concentrated hazardous material, and it improves and hopefully adds to the natural treatment system that we have that's core to our current treatment and will remain so. The wetlands, the treatment wetlands, the enhancement wetlands. So aging infrastructure, meeting our permit requirements, which is huge. We have a new permit that we got in 2019 that lays out a time schedule order for implementation for meeting new discharge requirements, and including ammonia, which is new to us. And So those are the drivers for the purpose and the need for the wastewater side rate increase. The typical single-family residential monthly sewer bill is currently $54.62. That's an average. Under the proposed, and this is just fiscal year 2021, which starts 6 months from now, that would go up to $59.99. That's just the first year. In terms of combined bills, the current Arcata is $82.69, and that will change to an average of $98.46. We did publish on the rate notice where the city of Arcata stands in relationship to other communities on the North Coast and in the region. And I can turn to that if necessary. But first I wanted to turn to Director Starveski to add to or add anything you'd like to the rate study analysis that did all the cash flow work that is the basis for the rates that we're proposing. I know staff tried really hard to tamp down the increase to what's needed only for the serving the utility. That's all we can do by law, is charge for the service that's necessary to provide, this critical function of delivering water, high quality water, and treating wastewater to required state and federal standards. So, Andre, and I will bring up these rates right now, if that's okay to share the screen. Just a moment. Okay, I'm sharing the water charges right now and trying to highlight. There's one other aspect on the water side. There is a meter charge, and that's based on a factor from the American Water Association that we've used for 20 some years, but those factors have been refined and over the years, so we're using the latest versions of those. So that's slightly changed a bit in terms of the meter sides. And this is what I was referring to on the wastewater side in terms of the average 10%, 10%, 10%, 8 over this 5-year time span. Highlighted this section because currently customers, I think, are used to this $5 per month sewer repair fee. That's a debt service charge from years ago, capital improvements. And that will continue until January 1st, 2023. And from that point, it's no longer billed on the wastewater charges. So customers will see that $5 reduction beginning January 2023. So really, water is realigning the cost of service to be equal for everybody. Wastewater is primarily to, fund large capital improvement projects. There's more to it than that, as you've seen in the rate studies that also allow for, a built-in escalator for inflation that's built into the cost of operation, maintenance, supplies, and materials. And this is the sewer chart, and this is the combined bill single family estimate. There's one other aspect on wastewater, I wanted to share. The rate study identified a new user class and a definition called significant commercial user, with a charge for BOD, which is biological oxygen demand, and TSS, total suspended solids. Typically, users above 700 parts per million BOD and TSS, which we don't have any. Well, we have very few. That high strength threshold usually requires installing pre-treatment to knock those numbers down. So that this is a new new feature that was identified. And we could talk about if there's any questions about that. I know there was a letter about that. We've had some conversations. So I wanted to also highlight that these are the maximum rates, you know, for the 5-year period. If approved tonight in this notice, which provides the opportunity to have a 5-year rate increase, the city can choose to implement lower rates in subsequent fiscal years. For example, if the bids for a major capital project, whether it's a water line replacement, whether it's sewer lift station, whether it's a treatment plant component, turn out to be less expensive than projected, or if we manage to acquire, you know, significant additional grant funding to supplement the customer rates, then there is the option to lower those rates in the future, in future years, for that allowance. We have generated quite a bit of grant funding recently for the wastewater system. Most recently, approximately $7 million to line many miles of main line, sewer line. And we are anticipating significant grant funds for the wastewater treatment plant project to be combined with what's been saved in our enterprise fund for wastewater from past rates and you know, the last 5 years especially, to be combined with additional rates to build what is the largest capital project that we'll probably see in the city, is this upgrade of this facility. Years ago, the federal government footed a lot of the bills for wastewater treatment plant replacements. That's not really the case anymore. So we're relying on low interest loans, debt service, grants, and our own you know, revenue from our own customers in this city to fund this major capital replacement and upgrade. Andrea, I wanted to turn back to you about some aspects of the rate notice that I may have not highlighted. Are you?
Hello. So just to kind of give a little bit more information on, I guess, the changes on the rate notice from the first version versus some of the smaller changes that were made. Bartle Wells did take another review of that, and there was a small reduction on some of the variable rates, less than 0.2% change as they looked back. They did include a delinquency factor within those rate notices, the recalculation on the wastewater side. And then per Proposition 218, we're not required to necessarily send out another rate hearing because it's a decrease to the customers versus the first version that was distributed, which was higher. And I guess as far as any other information that you've touched upon within the public hearing or within this format, I would say you've summarized kind of the basis of having the rate study very well, and then the major changes and why the customers will see those changes on the water side, with taking us from multiple tiers to one flat rate for consumption, looking at the underlying meter ratios based off of best practices through the American Water Works Association, And on the wastewater side, highlighting, of course, making sure that we're covering our cost of service, cost of additional capital for the wastewater treatment plant. And as far as the consumption rates within the study, some of the different classifications had changes based off of the cubic foot allowance for the different user classifications. We're all very consistent across each user classification now at 400 cubic feet versus some of the different the setup we had that's currently in place. So I think that's about it as a high level summary of some of the major changes as a result of the rate study.
Michael, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that.
Okay. I will now ask for questions from council, starting with Vice Mayor Patino.
I have no questions at this time. Thank you.
Councilmember Pereira.
Nothing to add at this time. Thank you.
Councilmember Watson.
I have no questions right now. Thank you.
And I don't have questions. One thing that I'm not clear about is, as far as the letters that were submitted or emails that were submitted, will all those be read at this time, or will only some of those be read?
All of the protest letters that are submitted are provided in your packet or blue foldered and will be added to the packet. Any public comment that we received via the public comment or email, not as an official protest, well, either as an official protest at the meeting, those will be read. But not the ones that were blue foldered to you or initially with your packet. And
Quick question.
Oh,
go ahead.
No,
I was going to say, just on the public comment, thanks for asking that question, Mayor Winkler. I'm just wondering, or, if, I guess my concern is like for this, if we have a ton of letters coming in, or public comment, which is fine. I just don't want to get in a position where somebody submits a super long comment and we have to read it because we're not doing the time limit. I just wanted to kind of ask that.
We have been time limiting the reading portion. We probably recall during one of the meetings, we had one that then carried over into the end oral communication, but
thank you.
I haven't heard, based on what we've received, and usually when a public comment comes in, our staff does scan it. If they feel like it's way over count, they will call back that person and say there is a limit. Do you want us to work with you to reduce this to fit within that limit? And for the most part, I think that's worked well.
Thank you for doing that.
So I will leave it up to you to decide which should be, public comment should be read, either all or some, and if it's only some, to describe what the reason is why some would be read now and some would not be read now.
The ones that will be read are those that came into public comment at cityofarcata.org, specifically for this agenda item for this meeting. All other protest letters, of which the majority, two were hand delivered today, at least to our office, but we send all of those to the Environmental Services Office so they get officially logged in as protest letters, and then they come to you as blue folder items. So it's only those public comments that were emailed in to pc@cityofarcata.org.
Could you go ahead and then read those that were submitted, if there were some that were submitted through that mechanism?
Yes, Mayor, we received 6 public comments for this item. The first one is from Leslie Quinn. Hello, my name is Leslie Quinn. I live at 1887 Hauser Court, Arcata. I am wholeheartedly against any rate increases at this time or in the future. My bill is currently $85 a month without even turning on the water, and I will not be able to afford to water my garden at all or keep things green around my house to prevent fire in these drought times. We simply cannot afford this, especially in COVID times when running hot water / soap is essential to preventing the spread of this disease. Please table this discussion for another time. Thank you for your kind attention. Second one is from Andrew Barber. Dear Arcata Council members, I am addressing this meeting in regards to the delivery of water and sewer services to residents of our town. Arcata residents already pay a steep price for water and sewer. With my family's bill, we now pay more for water and sewer than for gas and electric combined. and the rate is high even if we barely use water. The proposed rate hike is huge. The changes will make water and sewer services in Arcata unaffordable for low-income residents and HSU students, and unacceptable for Arcata businesses that rely on competitive rates to make their products here. Also, the city of Arcata has known for at least 2 years that the marsh sewer treatment system was in violation of state law and consequently polluting our bay. And it has known for much longer than that sea level rise is a real threat to operating a wastewater plant in the Arcata marsh. To propose this rate hike in order to fix a treatment plant that is going to be underwater in the near future is folly. To do it when most residents don't have a job and in the midst of what looks to be a long and hard recession is, I think, a cruel folly. Arcata and its 17,000 residents can't buy their way around sea level rise, and they can't afford these rate hikes to try and do it. It would have been responsible to address this issue when it arose years ago, but here we are. So I implored the city council members to find a better solution to this problem. The next is from Anna Sorensen. My water bill is already the highest bill I have, and we conserve water as much as possible. Doubling water bills in the next 5 years is an insane proposal to those of us already struggling to get by. The minimums on water have ensured you have gotten money even when people don't use a single drop, as was my case when I had to leave the state for a family emergency for 2 months, and no one was in my home but still had an almost $150 bill when I returned. Where is the fairness of that when people aren't even using water at all? There was a rate increase a few years ago, and now in a time of economic crisis for everyone, you want to try and get us to pay more. We are struggling to put food on the table, and you are talking about doubling water bills that are already high to begin with. You are taking water, something no one can live without, and holding it over our heads since we have to have it. It almost feels like extortion, and it is just plain wrong. I love living in Arcata and have for many years, but it's gotten harder to afford it, and if these rate increases take effect, my family and I may look into moving. This rate increase is preposterous, and considering we pay monthly bills and taxes to the city of Arcata already, I would think the money to help could be found in other areas instead of passing the burden on to already strapped customers. How is this even justified? And in these days of COVID-19 as well, it's just too much. The next is from Rex and Anne Marie. We oppose any increase in water and sewer rates at this time due to the financial hardship it would place on so many residents of Arcata. Our business is currently shut down, and we are only 2 among many. Now is not the time to impose another burden on people already in distress. Next is from Nick Wren. I oppose any rate hikes on water or sewer. I have lived in Arcata for 24 years, and in fact, the water and sewer rates should be adjusted so people who use the minimum amount of water pay accordingly. I pay $80 minimum no matter how little water I use, which is ridiculous. The last one is from Kelsey Reedy. This rate increase is significant and will leave many low-income community members unable to pay their water and/or sewer bill. Why don't we increase rates based on income or property value? And again, even defunding Arcata Police Department even slightly would pay for this. Let's get our priorities straight. And that concludes the public comment for this agenda item.
Right, any final comments or questions from the council, starting with Vice Mayor Patino?
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Pereira.
I want to thank and acknowledge everyone that did submit comments on it. I am supportive of us moving forward with these rate changes for water and wastewater. I don't think there's ever a really good time to make these types of increases. Obviously, right now it's an especially challenging time, but I do think that us delaying the timing of the implementation of these respective fees will hopefully help people through as we make this transition.
Councilmember Watson.
Yeah, first I'd like to thank our staff for the incredible amount of support they've given me, the amount of patience they've shown me, the 20 times they've repeated everything, when I've had trouble understanding things. And just, especially within this last week, I've really been spending a lot of time trying to get an understanding of the project. So I was confident, in the decision we're making tonight. I think to some of the comments, in my opinion, I think the folly would be to do nothing. I completely sympathize with people. It's horrible what people are dealing with right now. But the fact is that this is needed very badly. And, it's one thing to have a bill go up, and it's another thing to have your toilet stop working. And I think people, that really needs to hit home with people that this is really serious. We really need to do it. And, I know myself, I know some other council members, also are spending a lot of time on this. And we, in our staff, we're doing everything we possibly can to make sure that we are raising rates in a responsible way. And, if there are opportunities that come in the future to lower those, we will be looking at those as we move forward. And so, before we cast the vote tonight, I want to share, perhaps reiterate, that these are 5 years of rate increases we're considering. Once adopted, they are the maximum we can approve each year for the next 5 years without another Prop 218 analysis and noticing process. And these are also not automatic each year. Each year, the council, we will review the increases. And with the budget, we can adopt lower increases based on each year's needs. So, I will be paying close attention to this. I know, our mayor, and I'm sure, Vice Mayor Patino and Councilmember Pereira will also be paying very close attention to this. And, as the project, there's a lot of moving pieces. And so there is potential for some things to shift and change. And, as the project and the costs associated with the project, evolve, we will be watching very closely to look for opportunities to minimize any rate increases, if there is an opportunity. Thanks.
I also realize that this is a major hardship for many people now, especially with the drops in income or increases in expenses that people have had with the COVID health crisis. But some of the commenters have commented that we should be shifting money from other budgets into this. Legally, we can't do that. This is what's called an enterprise fund, meaning that the system has to direct that the users of the wastewater system and the users of the freshwater system have to pay for all costs. And because of court rulings and Proposition 218, that we, even though we might like to have lower rates for people more in need, we're not legally allowed to do that. And that we legally have to make it so that the cost for each type of user represents the actual cost. And so that, because of that, that is the reason why we are changing charges for water in order to comply with court rulings and the law that's on the books now. And as far as wastewater increases long-term, as one of the commenters suggested, is because we are not complying with all the federal and state regulations, we have to do major rehab and upgrade of our system in order to comply. And doing those upgrades and repairs are expensive. And so unfortunately, that has to be passed along to the users of the system. So I support the increases, that I recognize the hard work that staff has done and that other council members have done to understand why this is necessary, and to be sure that the amounts that are being proposed represent real costs and necessary costs. So I will entertain motions on these two areas of freshwater and waste treatment.
So I'm just going to add in a couple of things. One is just a final count on the protest. So we received 30 letters with parcel addresses, and then we received 6 speakers tonight. Let's make the assumption that all 6 of those speakers, most of them indicated they lived in Arcata. So even if their written comments didn't have their address, I'd say we count all of those. So you had 36 total protest letters on 36 parcels, which would be included in your motion tonight. And then we are, I think we have finalized just about everything associated with the wastewater rates, but we are looking a little bit more deeply at a couple components of that rate. So we are asking that you close that public hearing tonight, but to go ahead and defer until just July 15th. We'll bring those back for finalization before you tonight, but all the other pieces of that would be handled tonight through the public hearing. So 36 total. Somebody could include that into the motion. That would be great.
I'm confused what the motion is now for. So I'm supposed to leave something out of it? Add
No,
something and then leave something out?
You're supposed
I'm sorry.
That's right. You're supposed to add in, and it's the same number in both places. I think there's a portion that says that the city received a blank number of protests representing a blank number of parcels. So that would be 36 and 36.
So moved.
Okay.
I can make the motion.
Okay.
I just did. I just made it.
Well, I think we have a little more detail to.
If you want to put a competing motion on the table.
Well, if someone wants to
Go
second
for it.
that one, but let's see. So I'll just make a motion to we close the water and wastewater public hearing and approve the proposed water rate fee for fiscal years 2020 to 2025. Find that Proposition 218 notices were mailed. Tonight, the public hearing was held and the city received a total of 36 protest letters totaling 36 parcels, which is less than a majority of those affected. Also find that the water rate fees as proposed are exempt from CEQA pursuant to Public Resource Code Section 21080B8 of the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, and CEQA Guidelines Section 15273. And lastly, bring back the wastewater rate fee proposal on July 15th for council action.
So the original motion
Second.
by Councilmember Watson is still on the table unless he withdraws it. Although
Yeah,
it is not-
I think Sophia did a great job of correcting me. Thank you.
All right, so he withdraws that. And we had Vice Mayor Patino seconded the motion by Councilmember Pereira. Right. All right, I will call vote on this by this motion by roll call. So Vice Mayor Patino,
Yes.
Councilmember Pereira,
Aye.
Councilmember Watson,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So thank you to staff. And I will go on to the next item. B, approved language of primary arguments in favor of Measure A, open space, parks and trails, special tax, and Measure B, Article 34, government assisted affordable housing limitations. Did we have an argument against that was submitted on this item?
We have not had any arguments against submitted for either of these items. I went ahead and shared the information that was shared with us from the 2 subcommittees. Starting with the open space ballot measure, we can take them in either order, but I just put them on the screen for the council and the public to review tonight. So the subcommittee, Mayor, did you want to start as open space? Is that okay to start with that one?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So this subcommittee was made up of Mayor Winkler and Councilmember Watson on the open space ballot measure draft. So I don't know if council members had a chance to look at it. They were just sent out to you earlier today. If you want to just take a minute to read it on the slide, and then
I just, I think it was masterfully done.
Let's see. So that's a comment from Councilmember Watson, comment from Vice Mayor Patino.
It looks good. I have no problem with it. Thank you.
Councilmember Pereira.
Yeah, it looks good. I think it does outline really well the value of the measure. The only suggestion I would add is, and maybe it seems so simple that it may not be necessary, but to just add a call to action more explicitly at the very least and at the end to invite people to and ask people to vote yes on Measure A. So either at the end or, you know, I'm trying to see where a natural spot would be earlier, but sometimes just a simple call to action that it maybe is a little bit separated from some of the narrative can be helpful. But other than that, looks really good. Thank you both for doing it.
And Sophia, thank you for doing the bulk of the work on the argument on Measure B. Do we have any public comments on this item?
There were no public comments submitted for this item.
So Mayor, I've gone ahead and pulled up the language for Measure B, the argument in favor of the Title 34 update. Paul, did you have a question?
Yeah, commenting on what Sophia said about the last measure, about the open space. And it looks like if we put that last sentence for Measure B, if we added that to the open space at the bottom, it'll match up with what we said here. Measures supported unanimously by Arcata City Council. Please join us in voting yes on Measure B. So maybe we could add that. Please join us in voting yes on Measure, whatever that is, A. Just to add that in.
Right. Any further comments from council? Vice Mayor Patino, and any further comments?
No, Michael, just to make sure that we add that, as Sophia said, call to action. It looks good at the end. It helps energize the thought, I guess.
Councilmember Pereira?
Nothing to add, and just thank you, Mayor Winkler, for your input on the Measure B.
Councilmember Watson?
Yeah, I'd just like to commend the authors again for just really knocking it out of the park. Thank you.
Mayor Winkler, could I jump in here for a second?
Yes, please go ahead.
I just want to caution you that I have not counted up the words in these arguments. And if you go over the word count, the end of your argument will be cut off. So maybe in your motion, if you authorize the authors to shorten it a little, if it indeed goes over the word count, you know, on Measure A, when you add that last sentence.
All right, thank you for the advice on that. All right, may I have a motion on this item, either separately for the two measures or jointly for the two?
I'd make it, but I don't want to mess it up, so I'm gonna leave it to another council member.
I'll make a motion that we approve the language of the primary arguments in favor of Measure A, open space, parks and trails, special tax, and Measure B, Article 34, government assisted affordable housing limitation, and note that adding the please vote yes information on Measure A will go in unless the word count is too high, and then we're authorizing the city clerk to make some adjustment to the language so that we can get that last sentence in.
I'm sorry, could you authorize the authors of the argument to adjust it?
Thank you. So authorize the authors of the argument to adjust it so that we can put in the last sentence there.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. I will do a roll call on this. Vice Mayor Patino,
Yes.
Councilmember Pereira,
Aye.
Councilmember Watson,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Next is new business, item A, public hearing to consider adopting the Community Development Block Grant Public Participation Plan through the adoption of resolution number 201-04. May I have a staff report from Director Loya?
Yeah, actually, Community Development Deputy Director Dart did the bulk of the work on this project. She did a fantastic job, so I'd like to ask her to deliver the staff report.
Thank you, David. Good evening, Mayor and council members. The item before you tonight is the adoption of the Community Development Block Grant Public Participation Plan. The city participates in the CDBG program through both grant awards and program income that comes into the city through repayment of CDBG loans. The public participation plan outlines the steps and procedures that the city undertakes to ensure the views of the public, especially the principal beneficiaries, are fully considered in program development as well as grant application. Having robust engagement creates better programs that can assist with neighborhood revitalization, economic development, and improved public facilities and services through the CDBG program. This plan is meant to be the minimum participation effort. We strive to provide additional engagement opportunities whenever we possibly can. So I wanted to be really specific that this CDBG public participation plan is not encompassing all of our engagement efforts at all. The adoption of the public participation plan came up in our recent monitoring visit as a recommendation. It was not included in our final report as either concern or finding, but it is something that we felt we needed to get to council for adoption for future monitoring visits, just to make sure that we had that information and what we did have something that was adopted by council that we could point to going forward with our CDBG program. So I would recommend that the council adopt the CDBG public participation plan tonight, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about the plan. I did want to note that there is a typo on the header of page 2. It's not a blow grant, it is a block grant. So I will fix that.
I will now ask questions from the council, starting with Councilmember Pereira.
I have no questions on this. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Patino?
No questions, thanks.
Councilmember Watson?
No questions.
Right, I have no questions. Any further comments from council? Councilmember Pereira?
None.
And Vice Mayor Patino?
No questions.
Councilmember Watson?
No questions.
All right, do we have any public comments on this item?
There were no public comments submitted under this agenda item.
And I have no questions or comments on this. So I would entertain a motion on this.
I would say we have staff direction, and I think I'm looking at the right thing. Oh, excuse me. I'd like to adopt resolution number 20104, adopting the CDBG public participation plan. Thank you.
You know, I'm still traumatized from when I tried to make a motion, but I'm going to go for it. I'd like to second this, please.
Is that okay? You were able to handle that this time?
I think I got it. Thank you.
Good, all right. So I will do a roll call now. Councilmember Pereira.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Patino.
Aye.
Councilmember Watson.
Yes.
And I vote yes. All right. And next, in a related item, item B, public scoping hearing on potential projects for funding under the state community development block grant program, coronavirus response round 1, titled CDBG-CV1, notice of funding availability, NOFA. May we have a staff report, please?
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and council members. The Community Development Block Grant Program has issued basically entitlement funding that it received through CARES Act money. And even though it's based on an allocation, so it's not a competitive grant, it's based on an allocation, we're still required to go through the standard CDBG public engagement process in order to ensure that our application reflects not only the eligible activities, but the community's desires. And to that effect, we will be having 2 publicly noticed hearings before we can apply for those funds. This is the first, and it's considered a scoping hearing. The idea behind the scoping hearing is it provides the public the opportunity to add potential projects to the list that the council can consider applying for. We heard one earlier in the public comment. I don't know if there'll be public comment on this item or not, but Colin Fisk had suggested adding the right-of-way improvements to the list. And so we'll be adding that per that recommendation that we heard. We can discuss that eligibility in a bit, but so that's the purpose of this hearing, is really to scope the potential projects that the CDBG application should apply for. So we're recommending that you open public hearing and receive any public comment, and then provide direction to staff as to which projects to pursue noticing for the application process, and then direct us to notice that hearing. We plan on bringing that hearing item back to you at your next council meeting. The city's allocation through this process will be $147,657, and to that end, we'd like to recommend a couple of potential projects for you to consider. I will point out that the staff report includes eligible activities in attachment A. And attachment B has the potential programs and projects that staff put together, both from information that we've collected, just talking to people over the the past several months, as well as the results of a public scoping meeting that we held this week. And I'd like to turn the staff report over to Deputy Director Dart to discuss the public engagement that we held.
Thanks, David. So in order to allow for additional participation, we held a stakeholder meeting yesterday. We didn't have a lot of notice. Some public comment came in prior to our cutoff for the staff report, so you'll see that in the staff report. But we did also hold this stakeholder meeting to discuss the potential programs and projects and what would be the best use of the city's allocation. The group who attended included members from Humboldt Area Foundation, Arcata House Partnership, DHHS MIST program, Arcata Chamber of Commerce. We had a homeless advocate there, and Redwood Coast Action Agency, a member from Redwood Coast Action Agency was there as well. So the group was very collaborative and talked through each of the different ideas that were proposed. They had some suggestions for other funding opportunities and partnerships that could potentially assist families struggling with distance learning. And it was also discussed that there were some other groups working on assisting businesses with their personal protective equipment needs. So it was a really good discussion about what was out there already and what Humboldt Area Foundation may be able to assist with, as well as some of the programs that Arcata House has going on in DHHS. The other activity that received support from several members of the group was funding assistance to families with the cost of childcare. And there may be some additional programs coming out around that as well. The executive director of Arcata Chamber of Commerce, who was a member of the Plaza Improvement Task Force, did point out in that meeting that the continuation of missed services in Arcata would be in alignment with the recommendations of the task force. So she wanted me to relay that back and make sure that that information got back to the council. Ultimately, the consensus was that the top two funding priorities should be the Arcata House Partnership Boyd Road Shelter Water and Sewer Connection Project, as well as funding for continuation of the MIST programs. Those are the two that really came to the top for this group. And it was a consensus across the board with everyone who was in attendance that those would be the two that they would choose. And if at all possible, they would like to see both of those activities funded. Although obviously we don't have the funding in this particular grant to fund both programs. MIST did get a budget back to us. It was too late again to enter into the staff report for this meeting, but they're looking at about 117,000 would be their budget request for 2 staff members, 4 days a week. So, and that would fund them for 12 months. So I'll turn it back over to David from there.
So, clearly these are all good projects. All of the projects that are on your list, we believe are CDBG eligible. I don't believe that the recommendation for funding some sort of street improvements is an eligible activity, unfortunately. But we'll put that one on the list for the sake of public participation. But the really great thing that came out of the stakeholder meeting was that, there were connections made for funding sources for some of the really important projects that we have on our list that can be funded other ways. In addition, it's sort of vetted out that some of these programs are either less of a community need or they have another funding stream already. So we can go into detail on those if you're interested in looking at some of the programs that we're not recommending. But I just wanted to emphasize that, the two that we do encourage you to consider either moving forward with one or both of these projects are the MIST program. And we got confirmation that that could be funded either at the full 117 or they could find a way to manage the program at half staffing. They can't go in any other iteration of that. And we can discuss that if you're interested. And the Arcata House Partnership Sewer Extension is also a very eligible and very necessary project that would help us to place the mobile homes that are out in the back of the City Hall parking lot and move people into those as transitional to permanent housing. Now, I do just want to address real quick that the Arcata House project was discussed at the budget hearing last meeting, and we threw out some ideas for how to fund that. I think there were some concerns among some council members about the timing of the CDBG money meshing up with the project timing and making sure that we just got that project done. It looks like the timing would sync together so that the CDBG funding could actually be put towards that. And in addition, if the council wanted to move forward with both the MIST and the Arcata House project, the MIST doesn't require the full 147,000. So if you want to go forward with MIST, then I suggest that you have both those in play. And I would like the opportunity to delve into the budget implications with Director Starsky and City Attorney Nancy Diamond in a little more detail and make a more formal recommendation to you at the next hearing if you decide to go forward with those, considering the fact that we had identified another funding source at the budget meeting. So I think with that, we'd like to answer any questions that you have and take any public comment.
I will now ask for questions from council, starting with Vice Mayor Petito.
Yeah, I'm fine with the MIST and the Arcata House. Of course, our Arcata House sewer extension is primary for me. And then if we can find some way to fund MIST I'm up with that too. So those two, I'm totally for those. Thank you.
Right, Councilmember Pereira.
I agree with the Vice Mayor's sentiments. Thank you.
Councilmember Watson.
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Right, under potential programs that the COVID situation is affecting a lot of people now, and I feel that it's increased the need for short-term rental assistance. So is that one of, this is listed as one of the potential programs that could be funded. Is that still being considered?
It is on the list. It's certainly something that we can pursue if the council would like to, like us to pursue that. The information that we're getting from the City of Eureka's program is that they're just not having very much interest in the program. Of the $200,000 that they've allocated, I believe it's 40,000. Is that correct? That they
just under 50. I think it was like 48 or 49,000 they've spent so far.
And they're heavily promoting the program, and so what they're finding is that there really just isn't a, even though they have that program up and available, there just isn't a demand for it, large demand. But we can certainly pursue that as well. It is an eligible activity.
How many people do we have participating in the short-term rental assistance that the city is providing now? I think it's all. Is it only focused on mobile homes, or is it focused on other types of rental housing currently?
No, the TBRA program is really entirely different than what would be operated if we had a CDBG program. But currently, that is open to all residents, whether they are in a mobile home or stick-built structure. We have approximately 48, is it, Jen?
Yep. That
are being assisted currently. They wouldn't be eligible for the COVID funding, and the CDBG has some restrictions on eligibility for the COVID funding that may further limit its impact and usefulness.
So if for instance, somebody was laid off from their job related to COVID, is that the type of situation that could be funded under item 2, or if there were a family member who or an individual that became affected with COVID and they were having difficulty covering their rent, are those types of things that would be covered, or would other types of things be covered if we were adopting number 2?
I'm going to ask Deputy Director Dart to address the limitations that come with the rent program through CDBG.
Sure, I can do that. So the short-term rental assistance program has some limitations. This funding source really has some limitations overall. It's not just related to the short-term rental assistance program. If there are other funding sources that are available, so for instance, if that person that was laid off due to COVID is receiving a stimulus payment or is receiving unemployment, those things have to be factored in before the use of these funds. So that may potentially make a person ineligible, even though they would be eligible just off of the basis of them losing their position due to COVID. So it's a little different how it would work with that type of program. I think it would be a complicated because you would have to factor those things in before using these funds. So if someone got laid off and wasn't receiving unemployment and didn't have any other source of income, it might work. The City of Eureka is not using this funding for their program, so their program isn't restricted in that way, where ours would be using this funding, from my understanding of reading the guidelines.
The other thing I'd like to add to that is that the program and the project that we're recommending you consider are actually fairly low administrative burden. the MIST program is simple. We would be basically cutting a check to continue that ongoing program that would really focus its energy on assisting homeless folks that that currently need resources and housing. The Arcata House project, I'm not going to say it's without administration. There's certainly some work to do there, but the burden of trying to go through and assess each individual applicant's financial situation and secure all the documentation necessary to ensure that you were correctly allocating those CDBG funds would take a lot of staff time, something that we have precious little of right now. And so we could certainly reallocate our resources to run a program like that, but it would not be wouldn't be as effective or as cost efficient as these other two projects that we're recommending. And then furthermore, the evidence that we have from Eureka's program is that it's not being as impactful in the community as they initially thought it would be.
Well, I could support the two that were supported by the other council members on the Boyd Road water and sewer and the MIST program.
Mayor, this is Karen, but before we get to public comment, I just wanted to give a little bit of context on the MIST program. I would love to fund the entire MIST program, but just for context, we have had MIST in partnership with the county for the last almost 3 years, and we have had one MIST worker 1 day a week for 4 hours. So even at half funding of the MIST, that's still 3 times more MIST services in Arcata than we've had over the last 3 years. So even that is a huge increase. If you're trying to balance some of each of these.
Yeah, and that would be some important information to get out of this direction, is whether to pursue the MIST program at half their request, which would again double or triple their impact on the community.
Does there appear to be the demand for additional services through MIST at this time?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they work side by side with the police department. They are revamping their strategy, I think, to be a little bit more impactful. But the surge that we're seeing in the unsheltered population through COVID and over this next year, I think will only increase the need for those services. So, but even at half funding, I mean, I think the critical piece, I think it really is critical for us to try to keep MIST in this community. And more than 1 day a week would be really valuable.
Have we received any public comments on this item?
We received one public comment. It is from Star Dressler. In regard to future COVID-19 funding for our city, it is pertinent for rent forgiveness to be incorporated. How can anyone be expected to handle a bill for 3 or more months' rent when they cannot even pay 1 month's rent? Not incorporating rent forgiveness directly and disproportionately affects people of color and people of lower income levels. Please stand for these community members and enact rent forgiveness. That concludes the public comment period for this item.
So I will ask for any final questions or comments from council, starting with Vice Mayor Patino.
Oh, yeah, I have no further comments outside of Boyd Road Sewer number 1, missed at half their requested funding as number 2. Thank you.
Councilmember Pereira.
I agree with the direction the Vice Mayor provided. Thank you.
Councilmember Watson.
I support the city manager's recommendation and position.
I do also. So let's see. So this is direction to staff. And I am open to a motion on this item.
if I could help with the motion, because I'm not sure it's 100% clear, and this has been a challenging evening for motion. So if you could move direct staff to notice public hearing for the July 15th regular city council meeting to authorize submission of the city's CDBG CV1 application for the projects named. That would be our great motion.
I need help also.
Move to direct staff to notice a public hearing for the city's CDBG CV1 application for the Arcata House partnership and missed at half funding.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think I can do that. Okay, so I move to direct staff to notice a hearing July 15th at our city council meeting to authorize submission of the city's CDBG CV1 application.
Second.
And do I need to indicate Boyd Road and Mist at this point?
That would be great.
Okay, yeah. So, and to indicate that the Boyd Road project is our #1 priority, and #2 would be Mist funding at half of the request.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I will do a roll call vote. Vice Mayor Patino,
Yes.
Councilmember Pereira,
Aye.
Councilmember Watson,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Right. Next is oral and written communications. Are there any further public comments for this meeting?
Yes, we received 5 comments under this item. The first one is from Star Dressler. In regard to defunding our local police in order to fund community safety programs, I hope you look to the City of Eugene, Oregon CAHOOTS program, as well as the developing Minneapolis Department of Community Safety and Violence Prevention for inspiration. Our local people of color will not be safe, and institutional racism will not be dismantled if we do not address our need for a local public safety program. The next is from Marley Jarvis. To the Arcata City Council, I urge you to take action to eliminate the disproportionate harm and death to our local Black and Brown community members through policing in our criminal justice system. We have seen clearly from the way that the Arcata Police Department grossly mishandled the Josiah Lawson case how implicit bias can result in the death of Black and Brown bodies. Responding to the emergency call, the Arcata Police Department focused on crowd control rather than working to save the life of this young Black man or collect evidence. This is one of the endless examples of how, in the heat of the moment, our implicit biases affect our behavior, leading to disproportionate harm to people of color. Implicit bias training alone cannot counter a lifetime of ingrained negative social messages we receive about who is dangerous. We must all work to decrease bias, racism, and rampant profiling that occurs in our police departments and other social and academic institutions. But we can't wait. We need specific policies and laws that protect Black, Brown, Indigenous, and immigrant lives now. In addition to the 8 Can't Wait campaign, I urge the City Council to review the 8 to Abolition campaign to not only end police violence, but to create communities that are empowered to provide for their own safety and well-being rather than pouring money into a punitive system that was designed to protect whiteness. We must pay back our societal debt to local communities of color through direct financial support, opportunities to lead, and restorative justice practices. I look forward to hearing your next steps. The next is from Sammy K. Hello, I am a resident of Arcata and am writing to urge both the City Council and the Safety Committee to listen to the community at this time regarding police defunding and abolition. It is imperative that efforts are made to hear Black, Brown, Indigenous, and homeless voices regarding making Arcata a safer city. This means taking extra time to reach out and make input accessible to all, including those without internet access or those who are not available at 6 p.m. for these meetings. The Arcata Public Safety Task Force final report of 2017 states that the top 3 calls made to APD are regarding homelessness, mental health, and drug alcohol use, which would be better addressed with social services and therefore lower crime rates. Section 4.3. This report also states the following. As Arcata wrestles with the sharp contrast between its idealized self-image as a community of equality and the actual experiences of discrimination among an increasingly diverse population, defining safety thus becomes both more problematic and more essential. Particular attention should be paid to public safety issues that disproportionately affect minority groups, section 4.2. It is important to note that until our community's basic needs are taken care of, these problems will not go away, no matter how many police are staffed. I was present at the last safety meeting, and 100% of public comments insisted on police defunding and setting deadlines for abolition, as well as town hall style meeting before July 22nd. I would like to see the council honor both the committee's demands and the statements of their safety task force final report with urgency. At the least, I hope to see police defunding and social services as an emergency resource on the next Arcata City Council meeting agenda. I would like to see the council make room for some kind of meeting or forum for the community to participate before the next July 22nd Safety Committee meeting. How can community members submit input to the Safety Committee before the next meeting? I have been unable to find any contacts. There was talk of forming a police community oversight committee, and that absolutely needs to be a public decision if we want to build trust between the community and the local government. I would also like to see the APD and City Council put pressure on our neighbors, the Eureka Police Department, to take responsibility and work towards harm reduction regarding the violence against a community member and medic in a peaceful protest last month. Lastly, but certainly not least, justice still has not been granted for Josiah Lawson and his family, nor real acknowledgement of the seriousness of this event. This is one example of the progress we have yet to make in community equity and safety. I demand justice for Josiah. Thank you. Next is from Jess Hagevert. To the Arcata City Council, my name is Jess Hagevert, and I am a resident of Arcata, occupied We Out Land. As a member of the Arcata community, I demand that the Arcata City Council commit to a abolition framework for defunding the Arcata Police Department. Patting yourselves on the back for meeting most of the 8 can't wait reforms is patronizing. Pointing to budget cuts for APD due to COVID-19 is weak and misleading, and being proud of Arcata's record is downright dishonest. While DJ Lawson's murder is still at large and our neighboring police departments, towns, and HCSO continue with their problematic and racist behaviors. Furthermore, the Public Safety Committee must be separated from APD if it is truly going to serve for our public safety. We need to hear from our most policed and under-resourced community members. We need several city-appointed community liaisons who can make sense of the bureaucratic process that has upheld white supremacy and superiority for centuries while excluding most of us in your community. You must recognize how many barriers you have put up in your community in your adherence to your rules and how many of these rules uphold systemic oppression. I see a public safety committee that is unreachable by the community entrenched with the police department. I see Equity Arcata as a mouthpiece for other organizations busy with racial equity lessons. Now is not the time to pander to your police or work on educating your businesses. Now is the time to take action. In the last month, the arrest record in Arcata shows the arrest of 46 white folks and 23 people of color. People of color make up 18% of our population, yet are 33% of the latest arrest record. 160 years ago, Arcata collected a property tax from its citizens to fund genocide against the indigenous people living here, whose families still live here today. Arcata has always existed within the structure of white supremacy, and Arcata must dismantle it from the inside. This is your job, City Council, to care for the people of your community. If you cannot commit to the work, step aside immediately and make room for those who have the courage to take us into a more equitable future. The last one is from Carolyn Raleigh Halsing. As our community rebounds from the economically challenging time due to COVID-19, I urge the city to consider not increasing APD's funding. Use this as an opportunity to transition into defunding the APD and reallocating those funds as they become available to social programs. I understand many of our social services are funded and provided by the county, but I believe this could be an exciting way to use our creativity and passion to address the specific needs of Arcata. I would also like to comment on Campaign Zero and the 8 Can't Wait guidelines, as they were brought up in previous City Council and Public Safety Committee meetings. Although these guidelines seem well-meaning, it is important to note they maintain the status quo and are just another Band-Aid that do not address the reasons for systemic issues. I look forward to our community figuring out and supporting what safety looks like for all of us. Thank you for your time. And that concludes the public comment for this agenda item.
Next is council and staff reports. I'll start with Council Member Watson.
Thank you. Guess I'll report. I feel like we've had some really good meetings with the Economic Recovery Collaborative, and one of the things we've focused on is trying to get outdoor seating going and just enabling the businesses and doing everything we can on our side of things. We're just gonna keep chipping away at that and just watch as things continue to change and try to be as nimble as possible.
Councilmember Pereira.
Yes, I wanted to request for our July 15th agenda to bring back an extension for our tenant protection emergency eviction moratorium. I believe the deadline we have for that is July 31st. It was just announced this morning that the governor has extended the authorization for local governments to continue these through the end of September. So I'd like for us to have it on the agenda if there's some agreement from the council to review that and see if we could extend it to September 30th. So basically aligning with the governor's authorized order for local governments. Thank you.
Right, thanks.
That reminds me, I also had a request for an agenda item. I just wanted to bring up, I'd like to talk about our liaison roles and just the expectations of council members as we sit on those boards. I just really want to make sure, really important things that affect our entire, constituency, all of our residents, what those avenues are for council members to bring that back to the council for deliberation. That would be something I'd be very interested in talking with. I know Councilmember Pereira may not be with us in August, so that July 15th meeting may be a good opportunity as well.
All right, that sounds like a good idea. Let's see. That I had discussed putting the tenant protection on with our city manager for July 15th, and we were planning to go ahead and do that. It's a good idea to remind us about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we can discuss liaison roles. Let's see. I attended a meeting of the Hazardous Materials Response Board that is continuing, and we have not had any incidents, so that has been good. I also attended a meeting of from Coast Energy Authority, and we adopted a resolution originally authored by RCA Director Richard Engel on diversity and inclusion, and addressed issues that have come to the fore lately at the local and national level. And that's all that I have now. Dates of future meetings that we have canceled the August 5th meeting as we usually do, and we will see whether we need to have a meeting on the 19th of August. It is on the schedule, but we will, if we find that if there's nothing urgent, we may also cancel that meeting. And with that, we are adjourned.